Okay, hey everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Shin, and I'm a researcher at Uniswap Labs. Today, my talk topic is hyper-fragmented liquidity, adversarial mempool, what do? And to be honest to all of you, these problems are not new problems. I'm just kind of driving home the issue, and hopefully by the end, you guys can have a sense of the possible solutions. So, oops, how do I? Okay, so the first problem that I want to talk about is this liquidity fragmentation problem. So at first, when Uniswap launched, and there's some other dexes, there's maybe a few pools. And it's very easy. You check the pool state, the liquidity, and you route through it. There's not much to do. But then Uniswap pools has grown exponentially in size. I think last time we checked, I have a separate graph, but there's about 200,000 pools in Uniswap alone. And so to search through that space is already pretty hard, and I think searching is a very hard problem by itself. And then you have all the forks and not forks, but other decentralized exchanges. And finally, there's even a harder problem of routing through both DeFi and CeFi liquidity. And it's just infeasible to do if you're going to find them one by one. So this is one fact that I want to show. So here is the cumulative number of pools just in the Uniswap protocol. And as you can see, it's right now hovering around maybe 230,000. And that's Uniswap alone. Adding to the problem, I've recently spoken to someone who is working on a sort of crypto data startup. And the quote I got from that person is, there's only 70,000 forks of Uniswap. And that's by the end of 2021. So I don't know if you want to do multiply, but at least you can do addition. So that give us somewhere around 300,000 to 500,000 pools that you potentially need to route through if you really want to find the optimal on-chain routing for any trade. So now you have this. So let's say you're aspiring, routing engine provider, or someone just want to find the best trades. Then you either have to integrate millions of venues pretty soon, and still missing a lot while all these new ones are launching. And remember that the integration steps is pretty manual. Like integrating Uniswap forks is relatively easy, but as soon as they add any change, it's kind of manual, and you have to find them in the first place. The second thing is, the second option is you just say, hey, let me not do that, but then you're not going to get the best execution out there because there's liquidity that's not being utilized. Now we just launched Uniswap v4 a while ago, and there is one fact that I want to put to people's attention, which is new pool deployment in Uniswap v4 is really cheap. How cheap? It's basically as cheap as v4 on the order of $5 per pool. Comparing that to a v3 pool, that will give you about a 99% reduction in pool creation price. And just one thing to remind everyone is, when the price is low, demand is usually high. So if you compare the number of V2 pools here in green to the number of V3 pools, you can clearly see that demand curve trends down. So with Uniswap v4 pools as cheap as v2 pools, we can kind of extrapolate what this graph will look like in a couple of years' time. And one more thing is not only do you have a ton of pools coming your way that you might want to consider integrating? Each pool will have its own hook, right? And a V4 hook is essentially just a smart contract that can execute more or less arbitrary logic within the pool, subject to some checks that we're implementing, which is great for the entire sort of DEX design space because you can implement all these new features. But it will be a nightmare for anyone who is trying to route, because now for each pool, you sort of have this custom logic that you have to implement and consider when you're comparing different routes. So what do we do? It is unclear. Okay, so before I go to the solution, I want to talk about the second problem. Again, for swappers, as the chain and the mempool is getting more and more hostile or adversarial, basically from the point when you decide to do a trade, meaning you sign some transaction, to the point where a transaction is confirmed, there is this whole journey where you think you're just sending a transaction, but there's like, 10,000 different automated bots watching your way, right? And if you make one misstep, you kind of screwed over immediately, guaranteed. So yeah, that's your pending transaction. That's a MEV searcher right there. And this is a cool lemma that I just made up today, but you can't have two things at the same time, right? You can't have both a fully permissionless system, meaning anyone can come to the game and play according to the rules, but then do whatever they want according to the rules. And at the same time have money left on the table, right? So anything that sort of that you decide to do in a suboptimal way will turn out to be suboptimal, right? You can't just wave your hand and say, hey, like, let me pray that my transaction actually lands on chain in the expected fashion. As long as you allow some slippage, you allow something to go wrong a little bit, it will go wrong. It will go wrong that much, right? Exactly how much you allow it to go. And we clearly don't want to sacrifice the permissionless nature of the blockchain. So are we just going to, we can't gate it, but then you have bad actors coming in? What do we do? So again, here's some facts that I want to show. So these are estimated, not accurate. It's just like some back of envelope math, but estimated profit earned by sandwichers just on Ethereum. And that's daily number. So on a daily basis, that's around maybe $30,000. And half of it is from this Jared guy from Subway. But it's substantial and it's suboptimal because swappers, while they're trying to simply swap, are kind of losing money almost every single time to sandwich attacks and leaving money on the table. And these bots are really doing kind of really complicated things. So this is just one top of block arbitrage transaction that I'm showing. And it's one transaction, right? They're sort of just like scraping all the pools that are in imbalance versus maybe an off-chain liquidity venue. And it's not something that you would see normal people do. But these bots are getting increasingly sophisticated on a daily basis. And furthermore, there's some recent results by a group of researchers, Mariam, Pranav, and Tim, on sort of the effect of MEV on the kind of possible design result of transaction fee mechanisms. And they're basically saying, I'm not going to state the whole kind of thing they proved, but they're saying MEV are bad for consensus stability in addition to swapper execution quality. Again, what do we do there? And sorry, this talk might be a little bit too short here, but just going to quickly show some conventional wisdom. So the first possible solution is you have this really hard-working aggregator, and he's just diligently integrating every liquidity source as they come on chain. But again, you face this dilemma of like, do you have every liquidity integrated, or should I wait a bit until I swap? The second thing is you can spin up trust yourself. You spin up this really beefy machine. You have really complex math. But to my observation, the median swapper are not these type of audience, right? And it's just impractical to expect people to be able to do this themselves while you hope for mass adoption at the same time. The third thing that's kind of a trendy topic right now is the concept of OFAs, or order flow auctions. And it's more or less of a market-oriented approach. And you have a few implementations in production already. There's MapShare from Flashbots, MEV Blocker by a group of people, and I think a lot of the relayer operators also have their own sort of OFA service. But the exact benefit of those is still being kind of hotly debated on Twitter, right? You just Google or search on Twitter OFA, and you will see oftentimes very contradicting opinions at the same time, or even contradicting kind of facts. And in case this is not clear, right? These are commercial opportunities. We have always tried to encourage people to build on V4, build on routing solutions for V4, and to the extent that you have your own proposal to solve them, we would love to see and love to talk to you. But one thing I would like to mention is, the two problems are sort of related, right? And sorry, that's the end of the talk. Hayden will continue this talk at 5 p.m. I'm going to leave it as is. And yeah, thank you for coming. And